Today we're here to tell you the cost of van life. It's a question we get asked all the time. So we're going to try and give you a little bit of insight into what it might cost and why that question is more or less impossible to ask. Answer. You try and do a really good intro and I can't even get my words right. I've got worse. The more I'm in pain, the more I just forget all my words.
So Emma's definitely the best person to answer this question, how much does van life cost? Because I'm absolutely useless with anything to do with money. I don't understand numbers, so I'm not good at all with money. Emma's the financial person out of the two of us. So I have absolutely no idea, just like you, how much van life costs. So I'm willing to learn as well.
I guess you'll be finding out together with Reese, even though he does van life, how much it actually costs. We're going to explain it whilst we're taking a little look around Brimham Rocks. It's absolutely gorgeous here. So we'll also try and tell you a little bit about this place as well and show you how beautiful it is. So the history of Brimham Rocks is really interesting. Apparently they formed around 340 million years ago. It's classed as a place of scientific interest and it's run now by the National Trust. Generally it's just a great area to bring the kids. It's absolutely beautiful and it's really interesting to look at. There's some absolutely amazing formations. These formations came from millstone grit, which was formed by the North America and Eurasia plates, which collided around 400 million years ago to create a huge mountain range. Around 335 million years ago, the UK was located over the equator where warm and tropical seas dominated. And approximately 15 million years later from that, the erosion of these mountain ranges transported silt, sand and pebbles by fast-flowing rivers. The grit that was transported included crystals, and the deposits from these rivers were then compressed and hardened over time, which then formed this millstone grit, which basically is what you see in terms of Brimham Rocks now. The cost of van life. Let's start off with the first, probably biggest, most important thing, your van. So the reason why you can't really answer that is because it all depends on what van you buy, which all depends on how much you've got to spend really, I suppose. So you can get a van from anything from a couple of £1,000s, just a bog standard basic van. Certainly won't get a camper for that, I wouldn't have thought, but you know, you can buy a pre-done sort of you know, little maybe Renault Traffic type thing, if it's a bit older, for about 5,000–6,000. Or you can just buy a van, a basic van for a couple of grand. People, you know, even get them as cheap as a few £100s. And then it's really up to you how much you then spend if you're doing it up, how much you put into it. Obviously, if it's already done up, the job's done, isn't it? But the less you spend, obviously the more old it's going to be, the more miles it's going to have on it. So it's really about what your priorities are. I would say, like we said last week, buying something as new as you can possibly afford with as least miles as you can possibly manage, because you can put an absolute fortune into doing the back of your van up and it look absolutely gorgeous, but if the engine goes, then that's it, you know, you've had it and you've got to buy a new engine and that's a lot of money. So really, price-wise, you're talking anything from a few £100s up to a motorhome that might cost you £70–80,000 for a brand new motorhome. So it really depends on what you're going for in terms of the cost of the actual original outlay for a van. You've then got your insurance to look at. So again, that all depends. Motorhome insurance is notoriously cheaper than buying camper insurance, and that's because if you're buying a camper van, unless you've had it converted and registered with the DVLA as a converted camper, what you're doing most of the time is you're doing it as kind of a camper that's classed as being in mid-conversion. And because of that, you can only use certain insurance companies. There's more now than there used to be. Years ago, you used to just be looking at like companies like Shield and Adrian Flux, and now there's loads and loads more companies that are doing it. So it is growing, and you are getting more and more sort of competition with these insurers. But as anybody knows, at the minute, the insurance costs have gone up through the roof. They're really expensive. So again, that all depends on, you know, do you have points on your licence? How long have you been driving for? How old are you? Do you have a separate car that you insure yourself on? Because, you know, that again, if you own a separate car, that usually brings your insurance down. So there's your price range for your insurance. You can be looking at anything from a few £100s. And I'd normally say up to a couple of thousand. But I know there were a guy that on the van life groups the other week that actually took a photograph of his insurance quote renewal that had gone up from £1,500 a year to a quote of £42,000. I mean, that's just mad. He actually rang them up to see if they'd got it wrong, and they hadn't made a mistake. They'd just decided that for whatever reason that's what they were going to charge him. So I don't think that's a common occurrence, but I do know that a lot of people's insurances over the last 12 months have at least doubled. Some of them have tripled. So obviously you've got that to take into account as well. And in terms of insurance, that's really all about as well, like if you're full-time and you don't have a base, then that's a difficulty with registering insurance. You've got to look at the alternatives and what you can do around that, because you have to have some kind of base, like home address, to actually register your insurance at. So some people, their base might be where they'll go back to a friend's house or a parent's house or something like that, and that might be what their class has been their base, and so that will be the home address. Other people obviously will, like us, might have a separate property that they do actually, you know, kind of go back to and use, and then that's your home address. So again, all of that comes into it. What area do you live in? Where is your base classed as being at? Because that can increase your premiums as well. So you are looking at an outlay, I'd say, of probably around about bare minimum, probably about sort of £3,000–4,000 to start off, and that really is kind of bare minimum, older van, you know, and you're not having a really high price on your premiums for your insurance.
So we've learned that we can start van life for £4,000. So what's the next thing on the expenditure list? It's going to cost a fortune, this, isn't it? £4,000 start off, and I think Emma said that would be your basic start off kit. So anything that's worth its weight, I'm guessing you can add another couple of grand onto that, at a guess. So what's the next thing you need to spend on, Emma?
It's all right coming to Brimham Rocks, you know, but the whole point in coming up here is to be able to climb on rocks, and I can't climb on anything. I literally have to bring my own cushion with me to sit down. So Reese said you might have to add on another couple of grand to get something a bit newer. You'd have to add on a lot more than that to get something a bit newer. But like I say, it's all depending on your budget. So the next thing that you have to consider is if you've bought an empty van, there's this sticking her head in these holes, going to get bitten, give up. If you've bought an empty van, you need to think about doing the van up, so you need to think about kitting it out. Now, if you go and buy a Renault Traffic or a Vauxhall Vero, something like that, and you take it, your typical kind of camper, to one of these places that do them up from scratch, you can be looking at about 15,000. You know, 10 to 15,000 is pretty average. Fit it out with one of those standard sort of modern kitchens, rock and roll bed, that sort of thing. You can do it cheaper than that, but you have to source every single thing for somebody else to do for you, like your windows, your rock and roll bed, your electrics, everything has to be sourced individually at that point. But obviously you can do it yourself and save yourself an awful lot of money. By buying an empty van, doing it yourself, you're going to save a lot. You can get yourself on Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, any other selling sites, Gumtree, whatever, and find rock and roll beds that are second-hand that somebody's taken out of their van. And that can cost you sort of, I'd say around about, second-hand one, you're probably looking at maybe sort of £300–400 for a second-hand rock and roll bed. If you buy one of these wooden ones where the kind of, it's like a bench and then it slides out, you can have those made for you brand new from about £250, something like that. And obviously just then make your own seat cushion to sort of go on the top. So furniture-wise, you know, it can be anything from a couple of £100 to just get your bed, to, you know, you're talking over £1,000 for some rock and roll beds. So it really depends on what you're wanting in terms of bed-wise, furniture-wise. Obviously, you can build it yourself from wood and do it yourself. That's going to cost you a lot less, but price of wood's gone up recently, so there is an expense with that as well. In terms of storage, you can, you know, buy these modern units, you can buy the modern wood, you can build it yourself. You can buy something where you're building in a basic wardrobe or basic shelving or something like that, like what we've done in ours. And that's going to cost you a lot less. You can even go around and, you know, buy it, get it all for free, you know, using scraps of stuff that people are throwing away, old doors, you know, old cupboards. We bought that it's like a 1970s larder unit, and we've split that into two. That were from like an antique shop, but it was still really cheap. So it all really kind of depends what look you're wanting to go for. And that's just for your furniture. You can be looking at nothing if you can manage to do it all recycled, to thousands and thousands and thousands really. It all depends what you want to put in it. It depends how big your van is, what space you've got to fill, all that sort of stuff. On top of that, you've then got your electrics to consider. So you've got an entire kit out. Now, if you've got a van that is kind of 2016-ish, but then, you know, it can vary. Basically, a van that doesn't have a smart alternator, then you're looking at a general relay sort of setup for your electrics. That's really a lot cheaper, a lot cheaper than if you've got a smart alternator, because then you're looking at needing a DC to DC charger. Your difference in your prices just for that one little bit of equipment is like 20 odd pounds for a relay switch, up to 300-400 quid, depending on what you get for a DC to DC charger. So it's all different. It all depends really, like I say, on what van you've got as to how much you're spending. It depends if you're going for a basic 12 volt setup, or whether you're going for solar power, whether you're going to have an inverter. You want to be able to plug in your 3-pin plugs, which you need an inverter for. So all of that, you can be ranging from, you can even buy a lot of this stuff second-hand as well. So you could be looking at anything from like 100 quid for a basic 12 volt setup, and that would be really basic, and it would be, you know, a lot of second-hand stuff, or stuff bought, you know, as cheap parts that you can find on like Amazon, whatever, right up to thousands, you know, 3, 4, 5,000, whatever more, depending on how many batteries you've got and if you've got lithium batteries. So to give you a bit of an example in the difference in prices, you've obviously got your difference between your relay switches and your DC to DC charger. And then on top of that, like if you look at your batteries, for example, you can pick up a 110 amp hour battery, which is like 90 quid for a normal kind of gel battery. It's like an AGM type battery, and that's where you'll get all your charge from for your leisure stuff for your van. So anything that you use in the back of your van would go through a leisure battery. So you can be looking at, you know, 90 quid for something like that, brand new. Or you can look up and beyond from like £600 for a lithium battery, and that's cheap. The lithium battery that we've got, which is a 200 amp hour battery, was very cheap, and I think it was about 700 quid, I think it was, and that's cheap. You know, some of these go up over 1,000, you know, so it depends who you get. Life Pro is quite good for lithium batteries, but it depends what you're getting. So it all really depends on your setup. Now, we've started out very basic, as you saw last week, just having your kind of cigarette lighter plugs in back. You can manage with it, you can do that, it's not an issue. And that is a really cheap thing to buy. You know, you're just looking at small parts, wires. Obviously, sometimes you have to buy the tools to be able to do it yourself in the first place, because you might not have all the wire cutters and that sort of stuff, which can be expensive. Then you're looking at it just going up and up and up. If you're looking at solar panels, lithium batteries, DC chargers, inverters, you know, where your inverters, you've got the difference between kind of sine wave and, I forget what your other one is, but there's 2 different types of wave inverters that you can get. And that really is about whether you're going to be using laptop equipment and like equipment that could be easily damaged or not, as to which type of inverter you need. So all of that stuff, you get this massive price range across what you're going to do. And there's no way of me saying to you, this is how much it's going to cost, because it depends what you want to put in it. It all depends on what you want to put in it. But your electrics and your furniture are your 2 main things that you need in a van. But there are additionals that a lot of people get that might cost more.
Oh, it's me again. Wow. Woo! That went straight over my head. You might need to rewind that. I hope you were sat there with your little notebooks and stuff. Lot of useful information. Emma is she's like a dictionary on this stuff, right? But now, onto the things that matter to me. I'll be totally honest with you, this stuff fascinates Emma. She's like, oh, this DC charger and that DC charger plugs into there. It just goes straight over my head. The things I want to know is, can I have a shower? Can we afford a shower? How much is my dinner? How far can I get to, right? How far can I get in my van? That's the thing, innit? How much is fuel? How far can I get? What does it, you know? Stuff like that. But more importantly, how much is dinner? How much do we have to budget for food? And is there enough left over after that for an ice cream or a caramel latte? Guys, I finally found my little bluebells. There they are. I really like my bluebells, and I thought there'd have been like a carpet of them in here at Brimham Rocks, but there isn't. Anyway, enough about bluebells. How much does dinner cost?
You see, he asks these questions and he thinks it's just like, I'll just answer it like that. You know, these are complicated questions. We don't have a shower apart from an outdoor one that you hook up because when you start thinking about getting heaters in and piping all that stuff in, unless you really know what you're doing, I don't think you should be messing about with gas and stuff like that. So that's another expense that you've got to fork out for if you want something like that. The same comes obviously your gas cooker, stuff like that. I think you have to get that plumbed in. I personally wouldn't mess about with doing gas myself. Certainly if you are going to do it yourself, make sure you get it, you can get like an habitation certificate. So that means the professional person has been out and they've checked that everything that's been done in your van has been done correctly, like the wiring, like the gas, that sort of thing. So obviously you've got those types of expenses that if you're going to add stuff like that in diesel heaters, for example, again, it's another cost. Again, it's something I wouldn't want to be doing myself. I'd want somebody doing for me. So that can add up. If you want to put windows in your van, that can add up. You know, so there's lots and lots of different things that can just keep adding on to it. So in terms of doing your van up and getting it to where it's ready to go in and travelling, you can make yourself completely nutty skint and have no left, so and not be able to actually go anywhere and enjoy anything. So it all really depends on what you want to do with it. In terms of whether you can afford a slice of cake or not afterwards, which is all that Reese is bothered about, then it's all about where you're going to be going and what you're going to be doing. So if you live quite basically in your van and you're just eating, if you think about it, you'd eat at home. It's not an additional expense, is it? Even if you're going out on a weekend in your van, it doesn't have to be an additional expense. You just cook in your van and you eat from your van, and that's the same as if you were eating from home. But if you are like us and you like to go into a local town or village and just even buy a coffee or something, we don't spend a lot of money or anything, but even that can, you know, add up. If you're looking, some places you're looking at £3.50 a coffee, that's £7. If you're doing that every day, that's going to add up pretty fast, and especially if you're buying lunch and things like that as well. If you're eating out and you're spending money on eating out, then you've got a budget for that. So I think that really depends on what van life is, what you're doing for van life, which is what we're talking about in last week's episode, which is all about kind of, if it's a weekend thing and it's about you getting away from your 9-to-5 job and it's about like a little mini holiday regularly or whatever, then you might want to eat out and you might want to go out for a drink on a night and you might want to just buy easy cooked food or whatever, and so that's going to cost you a bit more. If you're living in your van, then like anybody at home, you know, you go to Aldi, Lidl, whatever other cheap supermarkets, you know, and buy food from there, don't you? And that can cost you as much. So it's all about really kind of how you live your life, and we all live our lives differently. So the cost is going to be different for every single person. The other expense, major expense, is travel. Van life is about getting out there and experiencing things and seeing different places. And if you're out like me and Reese and you get bored, we can be going from down the bottom of Cornwall all the way up to Scotland in one day. So you can be looking at a lot of money in fuel. So you've got to consider and take that into account. In terms of fuel, we all know it's gone up massively over the last few years. And obviously, even abroad, you know, some of the places, France is extortionate for fuel, absolutely extortionate. So there are things that you can do if you're travelling across Europe, for example, fill up before you go, get through France as fast as you can so you're not paying out a fortune in fuel, and get into Spain and you'll be paying a lot less for your fuel. So there are things like that that you can think of. If you're living in your van, you're getting up and you're going to work, place of work every day, and you're kind of in a regular park up or in a park up that's just within a mile radius, you're not really using a lot of fuel, are you? You're probably using a lot less than if you were to drive from your home to your place of work. So in terms of that style of living, you're not going to use that much fuel. But if you're going all over and you're wanting to look at different places, try and plan your routes, try and be careful, try and not do what me and Reese do and get bored and just decide to go off from one place to another. Although we don't do that often, like up and down the country, because we like to we do like to think about the environment a little bit within that as well. Fuel can be a massive expense, you know, obviously to fill a van up of our size, you're looking at about £100–110 to fill it up. That's a lot of money for one tank of fuel. But to give you a bit of an idea, when we had a Renault Traffic, we went all the way from West Yorkshire, all the way down to the tunnel, Channel Tunnel, all the way across France, across Spain, over to Ibiza, drove around Ibiza, came back through Spain and France, and we did that on 2.5 tanks of fuel. So that's not anywhere near as much as you might expect. We had the Sprinter, I think we were looking at more like 4 tanks of fuel. And I think then when we sort of did it last year, when we did our trip, if you go back and want to see some of our European trips from last year, and we did it in Romany, we went to a lot of places, but we were stopping there for a bit at each one. So that kind of helped a little bit as well, in that you're not just flitting from one town to the next too much. We're definitely going to do it a bit slower this year. But we did spend probably about 5, maybe 6 tanks of fuel. So, you know, that adds up. It adds up pretty quickly. I think it all just depends on what time you've got to travel, over how long that spans out over. So if it's spanning out over 4 or 5 months, that cost isn't as hard on your purse strings, if you like, as if you're trying to get it all done in the space of, you know, I don't know, a month's holiday or whatever it is you're doing. So you need to think about that. I can't think, is there anything else that we need to think about, Reese? I'm filming you. Have you got any tips?
Tips about what?
About what we're talking
Oh,
about,
yeah,
cost of living
right.
in a van.
Tips about cost of living in the van. I've learned a lot from you just listening, because it's a subject that I have no interest in whatsoever. So I don't always listen when Emma goes, as you know, your priorities in life, like caramel latte, you know, things like that are important. And I'll say, oh, can I have a caramel latte? And Emma will go, well, not really, because we're heading up towards Edinburgh. So, and I'm like, what difference does that make whether we're going to Edinburgh, whether I can have a caramel latte? So that I've now learned a little bit about why I can't always have a caramel latte.
And why we have to share a slice of cake sometimes.
Why we have to share a slice of cake. So things like that, do you know what I mean? I can tell you what not to do. That bit I can. So I can tell you, don't go to campsites. Don't stay on a campsite is what I can tell you to do. So if you budget that into your everyday living, it's what? We don't stay on campsites, so I can't even...
from like 15 quid to 40 quid a night.
Right, so there you go, 15 quid to 40 quid a night
UK.
to stay on a campsite. In the UK, it might be different in the US and Europe, I don't know. But so that's like, you know, if you were to do that every single night, that's a lot of money, isn't it? You know, so just wild camping, free camping, stealth camping, call it what you want, not staying on a campsite and sleeping on the road, which that's not wild camping, is it? That's sleeping in your vehicle overnight. Check that out on Google, it's a grey area. So if you're to sleep in your vehicle overnight, not in a campsite, that's going to save you an absolute fortune, innit? You know, and then you can then spend that money and use that money to maybe do up your other van. If you're the kind of person that's racking this up and you sat there with a notebook and you're going on, oh well, I just can't do it, don't think that. Find ways that you can do it. You know, it might not be that you can get a van straight away, you know, but try and get out into... The only reason I'm saying this, because a lot of people message me and Emma, and they'll say, you know, I just can't do it. Like, I'd love to be doing what you guys do, but I just can't do it. Do little steps, little baby steps.
How did we do it, Reese? What did you have to do without for us to save up to buy our first van?
Well, you made me sell my motorbike for a start.
Yeah, and what else did we have to do to add it up? You weren't allowed cake for ages.
Allowed cake, no caramel lattes, nothing like that. Literally every single penny.
And we cleared off our debt. That were our focus, wasn't it? Clear the debt, get back on our feet. And then start saving. So you can do it, just takes time, doesn't it?
And if you want to watch more on that, there is a video called Steps 1 to 5 of the plan. If you look further down, you'll find that video, and that kind of covers more about that time period where we literally did without nothing. We had nothing. So just, you know, don't be discouraged by all these numbers that Emma's telling you about, you know, because it can be done, and just stick in there. I believe in you. Emma said that were really good. So that were brilliant then.
I can't move now because Daisy's decided she's comfy here, and to be honest, I'm really struggling to even move, let alone
You're not getting back up from there, are you?
I know, I'm just staying where I am. I'm all right where I am, on my little cushion, I'm all right.
I'll tell you something as well. It says this car park closes at dusk.
Well, I aren't running, you'll
it's
have
dusk.
To run. It's not dusk yet, is it? We're all right. We'll park around the corner anyway, we'll be all right. But yeah, in terms of as well, like if you're thinking, well, I do want to buy the best I can afford to buy in terms of a van, yeah, I get that. Obviously, I'd recommend that. But the best you can afford to buy, you might know, is really not that much of a good van. Do you know, it's, obviously you might pick up a 500 quid work van that needs some work doing on it. You might be a bit handy, you might do it all out yourself in back, but you know that it's not going to last you that long because, you know, maybe it's got really high mileage on it and stuff. But remember, especially if you're buying like an old work van type thing or something, and we talked about this few episodes, two maybe episodes back, I think it was, when we talked about which van to get. If you're buying something like that, like I said then, try and get something that's maybe not a battered work van, you know, a carpet van, something like that if you can. If you can't, whatever, just get whatever you can afford. Don't get yourself into masses of debt with it, because that's not a good idea either. You don't want to be starting this life of freedom with loads of debt around your neck, because then you're not going to be able to go out and enjoy it because you're working all hours to pay off what you've just spent. So that's why I say clear off what you owe and try and buy whatever you can manage, no matter how small it is. And remember that if you've done it out and you've kitted it out and it's even a really basic camper, you're still going to make money on it when you sell it. I've never known anybody not make money on them when they sell them. And obviously if the engine falls out of it, it might be a different matter. But as long as it's running like it was when you bought it or better, and you've added to it, it's like adding value to an house in a way. And I think it's the only way with a vehicle where you don't actually lose money. Even if you're making a few hundred quid, a couple of grand, whatever it is, that will allow you to then put that in and get the next van that you want. So you're kind of moving up the scale, and you definitely see from our vlog that we did, we moved up the scale with what we bought. You know, from what we originally had, we moved up the scale to what we've got now. But just think carefully, budget, do it within your own means, try not to overspend. That's the main thing on it. I'm not sure if there's anything else that we haven't really covered in terms of the cost, because it is about, like, how long's a piece of string, really? It's a very difficult question to answer. There are so many elements to doing a van up, or to buying a van, and how much does van life cost type of thing, that you can't really account for. Everything is really subjective. So if you do ask these questions on van life groups, and people are a bit funny with you, they shouldn't be funny with you because it's not nice, and they've been in your position when they're trying to figure out what they want to do. So nobody should be funny about it. But they are answering in terms of they can't really answer that question, because it does depend how you live your life, what you buy, and what you're going to put into it, how much you're going to travel, all that sort of stuff that I've just gone on about all sort of matters and comes into it, really. So it's very, very difficult to work it out. And if you're going to be going abroad as well, you know, sometimes you have that expense in going abroad and travelling to Europe, or, you know, Turkey, Bulgaria, whatever it may be that you're driving to. And people will say, you know, that you've got to fork out for the crossings, you've got to fork out for ferry crossing or tunnel crossing or whatever, and you do, and often that's more expensive than a flight. And then you've got your fuel on top of that, then you've got toll roads on top of that in other countries, and in this country, in the UK, you've got these green zones, so if you're not Euro 6, you've got all that to pay out for as well. So yeah, it can be expensive in terms of stuff like that, but also when you think about it, you're not paying for accommodation to stay overnight anywhere. You're eating within your own van, so you're not paying to go out for a meal all the time, or you don't have to pay out to go out for a meal every night of the week. So you've got that cost cut down. So you are keeping the cost down in other ways. Your fuel might be cheaper when you get over to other countries. Your cost of living and going out for something to eat might be a lot cheaper. And now Daisy's seeing a dog. So on that note, we'll catch you in a bit.
So while Emma's sorting Daisy out, I'll show you some more of these rocks. So beautiful up here. Many, many happy memories here with coming up with my mum when I was a kid. Look at this. And it just goes on like this forever. There's just a network of these ancient rocks. A lot of rock climbers come here and do a lot of rock climbing. When I was younger, when I was at college, I did like an outdoor leadership, outdoor sport course, and we used to come up here climbing quite a lot. Can't climb these days because I'm scared of heights. I wasn't scared of heights back then. I don't know what caused that. But these days I'm scared of heights. But yeah, used to come climbing up all these. Epic memories. Where's Emma? There she is. Whew. Still quite mild. Yeah, definitely highly recommend up here, Brimham Rocks. It's just outside of, I don't know where it is actually. Oh, look at that little bee. Isn't he lovely? I love bees. Oh, he's going in there. That must be his little house. Yeah, it's just beautiful up here.
So I'm in absolute agony now. I've literally only walked
Come on, up
about
along.
200 yards from van up to this bit, and Reese has done all the rest of it, but it's when I'm sat as well for too long it hurts. So we're going to make us way back down to van now, get a nice coffee. This sunset's looking absolutely beautiful, so I'm looking forward to that, but I don't really want to get locked into a car park.
I don't.
I hope that I've covered as much as I can about the cost of getting a van, living in a van, that sort of thing. It is a difficult thing to cover, and I hope I haven't bored you too much with it. It's just kind of one of those trying to answer the practical questions for you. There is another element to van life that not a lot of people do, but you can do, where your van can actually make you money. So you can run like it as on Airbnb type of thing. So you can get, I don't know if you can actually put it on that particular channel, but social media, whatever they call it. You can actually rent out your van for people to take it on holiday. So a lot of people do it. There's not many kind of van lifers as such. It tends to be some people that own like motorhomes or things like that. But if you've bought something that is a bit quirky or unique, or you just want something that you know you can let out for cheap to people, there's quite a few people that we have seen that try out van life by hiring a van and just seeing what it's like, seeing if they like it. So number one, that's something you can do if you're not sure if you want to do it and invest the money. You could try hiring one out for a few weeks and just going off and seeing what it's like. And number two, you can make your own money out of renting out your van and make some profit on it. So that is something you could do. It's not something I've ever done, but it is something that you can do.
I don't know, we've come out here where I thought we were parked, and it's not the car park.
No, you're panicking, it's not.
I'm not panicking. I don't think it's been nicked, I just don't know how to get to the car park.
No, we're down the hill.
Are we?
We're down the hill, not in that one. We're just down there at that bottom one. This one was shut off when we came up, so we've had to park in that spot down there.
So I think we're going to talk about actually how to earn money, which is like the next step in it. So you've got your van, which we covered in a vlog a couple of weeks ago, which van to buy, because you've worked out how much it's going to cost you. So you've made your decision, off you go on your van life. Now what do? How do you earn money on the road? And we keep we don't deliberately keep teasing this. It just needs to be a vlog on its own, because again, there's so much to it and so many different ideas.
And it's something we have covered in little bits, isn't it, over different vlogs, but then you lose it. And if somebody wants to come back and learn a bit more about that, you need it to be in the title so that you can find it again. There's no worse than
And that's why we're sort of
doing
doing like this mini series where it's like back to back, almost instructional-ish advice videos, if you want to call them that. If you want to call them that. But yeah, that's why we're doing this. So it's kind of easier to find if people want to go back and watch it, or if new people come that are starting van life that want to kind of check it out.
I think we look like intelligent people you can
I'm
trust,
intelligent.
don't you?
I've got a reasonably high IQ.
We look like intelligent, trustworthy people, I think. Yeah.
I've forgotten what I was saying now. Sorry. You've interrupted my train of thought. I was going to say, wasn't I? That were it. I was going to say, so I think we're going to tell you what the next step is, like how to make money in a different vlog. I don't know. I'm not going to say it'll be next week, because I got in trouble for saying I was going to show you the boat, and then they were like, how are we going to show them the boat? Like, I'll be honest with you, right? I'll be honest. I've got a pirate's captain's wheel, and I was going to show you that. I was going to show you my little. That's what the big update was. So I've spoiled it now anyway, because I've spoiled it because you know what it is now. You ruined it, but yeah, that's what it was going to be. It was going to be this pirate's ship's wheel that Emma's fixed up for me. But you haven't seen it anyway, have you? So anyway,
I'm dreading going back to the van because it still stinks of garlic a week on.
And
absolutely reeks.
The foraging and your garlic pasta. Which were nice, actually. I did enjoy it, must admit.
Except for it's still smelling.
But it still stinks. Can't get rid of that smell of garlic, can you? And that's all your fault.
Well, it was a free meal, though. That's an important thing, actually, in this vlog. Foraging. Foraging, getting food for free. So you can get food for free. Not only can you get parking for free, you can get food for free.
Yeah,
that's something we missed, isn't it?
For free.
Rhubarb, berries,
you can eat for free.
Yeah. Not totally. I
Not
mean, you do
totally,
have to
but
buy
you
some
can find a lot of
basics,
stuff free.
but
I mean, rhubarb, we come across rhubarb constantly, don't
yeah, wild garlic you come across quite a bit, various different berries, depending where you go, chestnuts, if you like. I don't like chestnuts, but if you like chestnuts, that sort of thing. So you can come across stuff like that as well.
we? Right, back to the van. There she is, there's Romany.
So that's it for this week, guys. We'll catch you next week. Don't forget to write your own story as you're planning it all out and the cost of it all and what you're going to do. And hopefully we'll see you on the road at some point. If you do see us, come up and say hello. We're going to leave you some lovely scenic shots driving away from this place. Listen to some music. Just have a bit of a chill out at the end of the episode with your custard cream and your biscuit while you contemplate how much your future van life is going to cost you.